I, a daughter living far from home, made the decision to stop sending the $1,800 financial support to my aging parents. Have you ever felt powerless in your own home? That no matter how hard you try, it's never enough to satisfy your parents? I lived with that feeling for years. On paper, my life seemed stable. I had a good education, a steady job, and enough income to live comfortably in the city. But every month when I transferred $1,800 to pay my parents' mortgage, after deducting other expenses, there wasn't much left. This isn't a story of revenge. It's a journey of silent wounds, unmet expectations, and the one time I chose to stand up for myself, even if it meant leaving behind those who bore the name family. Such a life changed everything on Thanksgiving Day, the day I stopped hoping things would be different. It all started with a very ordinary invitation. I had just moved into a new apartment and decided to invite the whole family over for dinner. I thought, maybe this year they'll see me not for my achievements, not for my money, but for who I truly am. But what unfolded that day only made one thing clearer. Some relationships, no matter how much effort you put in, only reveal the distance. And to understand that day, we have to go back to the beginning, to years of silence, comparisons, and love reserved only for those who knew how to please. If you've ever felt like me, trying until exhaustion but still not being recognized, leave a comment below. Hit like if this story resonates with you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to hear the next part. You might find yourself in it. If you've ever felt that no matter how hard you try, your family just takes it for granted, then perhaps you'll understand me. My name is Emily Carter, 28 years old, currently a financial analyst at a top firm in Boston. I have a stable job, a good income, and my own home in the city. From the outside, I thought I had stepped into a dream life. But in reality, every month I still transfer $1,800 to pay my parents' mortgage in the countryside, plus nearly $800 for other expenses. Even though I'm the only one keeping our childhood home from being foreclosed by the bank, I've always been considered the ungrateful child. For my parents, my younger brother Nathanis, the real pride and joy. Nathanis, 3 years younger than me, has been good at football since childhood and now works as a salesperson in Chicago. Whenever I call home, my mother often asks, "How's Nathan doing these days?" And when I tell her I've just been promoted, she just mumbles, "Oh, that's nice, dear." Not a single congratulatory word, not a single word of encouragement. And my father would say, "Working in investments? That's just playing with numbers on a screen, not real work." I once thought that if I was good enough, successful enough, they would see me differently. I was a good student, independent since college, graduated with scholarships, and started working right after graduation. But the more successful I became, the more empty I felt. Because everything I achieved for my family was just, it's obvious she's good. And what hurt me the most wasn't being compared. It was the feeling that all my efforts were invisible to the very people I was always trying for. Someone once said, "Success without someone to share it with is just a form of loneliness measured in money." I understand that feeling perfectly. It's not loud. It's silent, as if you're carrying the weight of the world, but it's still not enough to be valued. I lived like that for years, in silence, struggling, waiting for a recognition that never came. But to understand why I accepted it for so long, we have to go back to the beginning. From the days I was a child, always standing behind the spotlight of my younger brother and always wondering, am I worthy of love? Let me tell you about where it all began. A childhood of too much effort and too little acknowledgement. I grew up in a small, orderly, and conventional suburban home, devoid of genuine affection. From a young age, I learned one thing. To be loved, I had to do better. Even better. More perfect. My father, Michael Carter, was strict. In his eyes, every achievement could be improved. I remember once when I came home with a second-place certificate from the district spelling bee. He just glanced at it and said, "Second place is just the first loser." I was 10 years old, standing still, holding the certificate. I didn't cry. I just nodded and told myself, next time it has to be the first place. My mother was different. She didn't criticize, but she didn't praise either. Her silence was sometimes more painful than my father's criticism. When I tried to tell her about my essay that received a perfect score, she just glanced at it and said, "Nathan just got picked to start this week. The school paper put his picture on the front page." I learned to swallow my pride, because if I spoke, no one would truly listen. As for Nathan, my younger brother, he didn't have to try very hard. Just being good at throwing a ball, running fast, and smiling brightly was enough. One good throw of his on the field received more praise than my 4 years of being an honor student. When Nathan made the varsity football team in 9th grade, the whole family had a barbecue. But when I received my acceptance letter to Harvard with a partial scholarship, my mother only said, "You always did like books, didn't you?" I didn't blame Nathan. He just lived up to the position he was given. As for me, since no spotlight shone on me, I learned to light my way. I tried not to be better than anyone else, but just to be acknowledged. But the older I got, the more I understood that some families place love in the only place you can't reach perfection. My childhood was a series of days chasing unnamed expectations. A competition where the only prize was to be acknowledged that I, too, was worthy of love. And no matter how fast I ran, my parents' eyes were always directed elsewhere. If you ask why I kept running, even knowing no one was waiting for me at the finish line, perhaps it's because I was never chosen for the starting position. That wasn't a child's fault. But it was a burden they had to carry for life. And I carried it with me into adulthood and the biggest decisions of my life. Like the day I chose to return home, beginning a new series of sacrifices that I mistakenly thought were for love. I returned home not because I ran out of options. It was because of a single phone call on a Tuesday evening. My father's voice, unlike usual, sounded tired and hoarse. After 20 years of working at the mechanical plant, his contract was terminated. Without a degree and nearing 60, he knew a new job wouldn't be easy to find. My mother only worked part-time at the library. Their savings, what little they had, were rapidly depleting, and the house I grew up in was 3 months behind on mortgage payments. "We're about to lose the house, Emily," my father said. "Your mother is very panicked." I listened and didn't think long. The next day, I packed up my rented apartment in Boston, moved back to my hometown, and found a small place 15 minutes from my old house. No complaints, no waiting for thanks. I just started transferring $1,800 a month for the mortgage and another $800 for electricity, water, and insurance. And in my head, the old saying still echoed, "I'm doing this out of love." My mother held my hand, tears in her eyes, saying, "Just help until your father finds a new job, dear." 3 years passed. My father found a part-time job at a hardware store, earning barely enough to cover their expenses. My mother picked up more hours at the library, but a librarian's salary couldn't sustain the old house. I kept paying. Not once did I mention the money I had transferred. Not a single complaint. But strangely, the feeling of hurt grew. My father still criticized my stock choices. My mother still compared me to Nathan, even though he hadn't sent a single dollar home. Nathan lived in Chicago, worked in sales for a sports company, called home a few times, and sent birthday cards, and that was enough to make him the perfect child. As for me, the one who paid nearly $30,000 in 3 years, I was still the cold, unapproachable child. I began to ask myself, is this a responsibility or an obligation? Am I helping out of love, or out of fear of feeling guilty if I don't? And perhaps when family ties turn into financial obligations, all love gradually drains from the heart. I didn't have an immediate answer, but I knew one thing. True affection doesn't come from regular bank transfers. It comes from presence, from the way people look at you and say, "Thank you for being here." I had never heard that sentence, but I kept trying, until one Thanksgiving day, everything finally shattered.
Leave a small opening here.
Well, listen. And this time, I won't take back my words. I didn't intend to say anything during that dinner. I had learned to stay silent from a young age, to swallow hurt while still smiling politely. But every limit has a breaking point. And the moment my father said, I don't understand why you keep bringing up money, as if helping your parents is some kind of big deal. I knew it was time. I gently placed my fork down on the plate. No shouting, no drama. Just a very simple question. When are you going to thank me for what I've done? The whole table fell silent. Even Nathan looked up, his eyes bewildered. My mother bowed her head, pretending to rearrange her napkin. My father chuckled weakly. Thank you for what? For doing your duty? I smiled a chilling smile I had never worn before. Duty? Then from now on, I'm taking a leave from it. My father stood up abruptly, his chair tipping backward. You have no right to speak like that in my house. I slowly stood up. Your house? This is my rented apartment, with the money I earned. If you want to kick someone out, it should be yourself. The air froze. My mother whispered, You're just jealous of Nathan. That calm, knife-sharp sentence was the final blow. I turned to Nathan, trying to keep my voice steady. Nothing personal, Nathan, but from today, you be the perfect child in every sense. You take care of the mortgage, the utilities, the insurance, as I have done for the past 3 years. Nathan's face paled. I didn't know about that. I nodded, because they never mentioned it. Just as they never mentioned my name in their prayers. I walked to the door and unlocked it. Dinner's over. Everyone, please leave. No one moved. Brittany was the first to stand up. She put her wine glass down, gently saying, You're not wrong. Then one by one, they filed out. My father was red-faced and my mother cried. Nathan avoided my eyes. I closed the door. Leaning against it, my breathing heavy. $347 for the meal. $28,800 over 3 years. But the real price was 30 years of not being seen. That day, I didn't win. I just found myself again. And once I spoke up, I was no longer afraid. Not afraid of being disliked. Not afraid of being cut off. Because I had cut myself out of a role that no longer fit. I don't know what I'll do next. But one thing is for sure. I won't pay for silence another time. After that dinner, I didn't cry. I just sat alone in the room, surrounded by leftover food, extinguished candles, and half-finished wine glasses. And a strange feeling crept into my heart. Not regret, not remorse, but relief. For the first time in years, I was no longer bound by fear. Fear of being blamed, fear of being labeled unfilial, fear of breaking up the family. The truth was that the family had been fractured for a long time. I was just the only one still trying to glue the pieces back together with money and silence. That night, I drove out of the city with no small dinner at my place. Anna was there, a few close friends, and Nathan too. We sat around the table that had once witnessed that Thanksgiving confrontation. But today, the dining table was no longer a place of judgment. It was a space for listening, for small stories, for laughter that didn't need to be stifled. I looked around, then smiled. I used to think that family was where you had to belong, no matter how much you were hurt. Now I know, a true family is where you can be yourself without having to prove anything. I no longer waited for an apology call. I didn't hope for a reunion dinner. I just needed this. My own space, wide enough to breathe, warm enough to love, and quiet enough not to have to brace myself anymore. And that was the greatest gift I had ever given myself. We are often taught that family is everything, that no matter how much it hurts, we should be patient, humble, and accepting. But sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to set a clear boundary. It's about getting up from the table where you are always overlooked. It's about walking away from expectations that can never be met. It took me 30 years to understand that love is not about enduring. And family, though it's where you were born, needs to be rechosen if it's no longer a safe place. Emotional freedom doesn't come from someone else changing. It begins when you choose to love yourself more than silence. If you've ever had to cut ties, had to walk away, had to ask yourself, am I being too selfish? then you are not alone. Share your story in the comments. Hit like if you've ever chosen yourself. And subscribe to the channel to continue the journey of recovery that begins with courage. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can say is, I deserve a life without constant strain. Arrived. Bringing hot soup and a simple offer. If you're tired, you can stay at my place for a few days. No explanations needed. That evening, I sat among friends, people not related by blood, but who were always there when I was at my weakest. They didn't demand that I be perfect. They didn't ask me to sacrifice. We decorated gingerbread cookies and told each other stories about work, dating, and our clumsy kitchen mishaps. For the first time in years, I felt normal. The strange thing was that normality healed me more than all the apologies that never came from my biological family. I recalled a quote I had read somewhere. Family is who you choose to be with, not just who you are born with. I no longer hope my family will understand me. I just cherish the people who didn't abandon me when I chose to stand up for myself. Family isn't measured by blood. It's measured by the presence in times when no one else is willing to stay. And I found that. Not in calls from my mother, but in the understanding, non-judgmental eyes of a friend sitting across from me, pouring me another warm glass of wine and saying, "You're not wrong. I'm no longer alone. Because finally I have a family, even if none of them bear the Carter name." A week after meeting Nathan, I received a handwritten letter. It was from my mother. 2 pages, familiar handwriting. No tears, no accusations, just gentle lines. I've thought a lot about your position. For the first time, I tried to see everything through your eyes, and I didn't like the person I saw there. She said my father was still angry, and still believed I had betrayed the family. But she was starting to see where she had gone wrong. No lengthy apologies, no demands for me to return. Just a belated acknowledgement. You've always been independent, and I thought you didn't need anything more. I was wrong. I know it's too late now. I read it over and over, searching for familiar tricks. Guilt, blame, pleading, but found none. Only an aging woman trying to find a way to call back the child she had inadvertently pushed away. I brought the letter to my next therapy session. Dr. Collins read it, then looked at me and said, "Perhaps this is a start. But remember, forgiveness doesn't mean going back as if nothing happened. No one has the right to demand that you heal a relationship that only one side wants to change." I nodded, and instead of a lengthy reply, I wrote a simple sentence. "Thank you, Mom, for writing the letter. I'm not ready to talk more, but I wish you peace on your new journey. I don't know if there will be a day when we sit together again. But now, I don't need that to feel whole. Forgiveness is for my peace of mind, not to allow others to hurt me again. And I have forgiven. But I'm not going back. I'm moving forward with the belief that I deserve a different beginning. Not a beginning based on overlooking, but on choosing my worth." A week after meeting Nathan, I received a handwritten letter. It was from my mother. 2 pages, familiar handwriting. No tears, no accusations, just gentle lines. I've thought a lot about your position. For the first time, I tried to see everything through your eyes, and I didn't like the person I saw there. She said my father was still angry and still believed I had betrayed the family, but she was starting to see where she had gone wrong. No lengthy apologies, no demands for me to return. Just a belated acknowledgement. You've always been independent, and I thought you didn't need anything more. I was wrong. I know it's too late now. I read it over and over, searching for familiar tricks, guilt, blame, pleading, but found none. Only an aging woman trying to find a way to call back the child she had inadvertently pushed away. I brought the letter to my next therapy session. Dr. Collins read it, then looked at me and said, "Perhaps this is a start. But remember, forgiveness doesn't mean going back as if nothing happened. No one has the right to demand that you heal a relationship that only one side wants to change." I nodded, and instead of a lengthy reply, I wrote a simple sentence. "Thank you, Mom, for writing the letter. I'm not ready to talk more, but I wish you peace on your new journey. I don't know if there will be a day when we sit together again. But now, I don't need that to feel whole. Forgiveness is for my peace of mind, not to allow others to hurt me again. And I have forgiven. But I'm not going back. I'm moving forward with the belief that I deserve a different beginning. Not a beginning based on overlooking, but on choosing my worth. That spring arrived later than usual. The young buds on the trees outside my window were still tightly closed, as if hesitant before bursting open. But for me, it was the first spring in many years where my heart felt light as if carrying nothing anymore. I still went to therapy every week. No longer to cut off the past, but to learn how to live without being controlled by it. I no longer dreamed of my mother or was startled by the familiar ring of the phone. I truly lived, with a new routine, with friends, with small habits that made me feel complete. I started offering free financial guidance to young people who had just left the social care system, those who were also learning to rebuild their lives without a family behind them. One day, I received a call from Nathan. Mom and Dad moved in temporarily with Aunt Robert, he said. But things aren't going so well. Dad refuses to look for a job and Mom still asks about me? I asked. Yeah. But this time, no accusations. She just asked, "Is she okay?" I didn't know how to answer. I was okay, but I wasn't ready to go back. Nathan understood. Between us, there was now a new rhythm. No more invisible competition, no more roles. Just two adults, trying to heal in their ways. At the end of the month, I hosted a destination. I drove past my high school where I once received my valedictorian diploma. No one from my family attended. I drove past the park where my father taught Nathan how to throw a football, but he never came to watch my debate competitions. I drove past the library where my mother worked, a place full of pictures of my brother, but not a single small corner for the awards I had won. When I returned, I opened my laptop. Logging into my bank account, I canceled all automatic payments. Mortgage, utilities, insurance. Each time I clicked confirm, a chain link was broken. I wrote an email to my family lawyer, confirming the cessation of financial support, no longer bound by legal obligations or verbal commitments. Everything was documented. For the first time in my life, I defended myself with the language of reason, not anxiety. I texted my parents' former landlord, informing them that I would no longer be paying on their behalf. Then, I called the electricity, water, and internet providers to remove my name from all systems. Simple. Decisive. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness, because what I was doing was what I wished my parents had done for me. Freeing myself from an unhealthy relationship. I knew they would be angry. They would call me ungrateful. But anger doesn't change the truth. Love cannot be based on money, nor can it be demanded indefinitely from one side. I checked into a hotel for a few days to avoid unexpected visits, and as I predicted, my phone started ringing. Messages flooded in. There was anger, tears, even threats. I remained silent, not out of fear, but because I no longer wanted to explain. Anna, my only close friend who knew the whole story from the beginning, texted, "Freedom can be lonely, but it's never worse than being trapped." I nodded, though no one saw, because even if only I knew, I was heading in the right direction. And every next step, I would take on my own 2 feet, needing no one to guide me, owing no one anything more. I once believed that with enough patience and sacrifice, my family would change, but I was wrong. The only thing that changed was me. In the first few days after Thanksgiving, I stayed at a hotel. Every morning, I'd open my phone to a barrage of messages from relatives, ranging from accusations to emotional manipulation. What you did was cruel. Your parents raised you, and this is how you repay them. I had prepared myself, but I didn't expect it to hurt so much. Not because I lost blood relatives, but because finally I had to accept a harsh truth. Some families, despite sharing blood, are never a safe place to return to. And then, something strange happened. The first person to call wasn't a relative. It was my boss, Jennifer. When she heard what happened, she said, This is your workplace. You have the right to feel safe here. If they come back, just notify reception. We'll handle it. Just that one sentence and my heart softened. Then Anna,